A fifth-round pick just got treated like the #1 overall selection. Not by an NFL team. Not by the Cleveland Browns who drafted him. By Nike. The same company that built empires with Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant just went all in on a quarterback that 31 teams passed on multiple times. And the craziest part? They signed him before the draft even happened. Shedeur Sanders is walking into his rookie season with endorsement deals that veteran Pro Bowlers would trade their game checks for. Nike signature shoes, Gatorade partnership, player-exclusive colorways designed specifically for him. Meanwhile, quarterbacks drafted in the first round are still waiting for their phones to ring. This is not normal. This has never happened before. And the NFL establishment is losing their minds over it. But here is what nobody is talking about. This is not just about sneakers or sports drinks. This is about a complete shift in how athletes build their brands. This is about a young man proving that draft position means nothing when you have something that cannot be measured at the combine. And what happens next is going to change everything. The 2025 NFL Draft was supposed to be Shedeur Sanders' coronation. Every mock draft had him going somewhere in the top 15. Some analysts had him cracking the top 10. A few bold predictions even placed him as high as the top 5. This was Coach Prime's son, the quarterback who lit up the Big 12 at Colorado, the player with the arm talent, the poise, and the pedigree to be a franchise cornerstone. Then draft night happened. The first round came and went. No Shedeur Sanders. Teams reached for other quarterbacks. Teams traded up and traded down. Teams made picks that left analysts scratching their heads. But Cleveland's number, it never got called for Shedeur. The second round started. Still nothing. By this point, social media was already buzzing. Something strange was happening. One of the most talked about prospects in the entire draft class was watching his name slide further and further down the board. Fans were confused. Analysts were scrambling to explain it. And somewhere in a green room, Shedeur Sanders sat with his family, waiting. Third round, fourth round, nothing. When the Cleveland Browns finally selected Shedeur Sanders with the 144th overall pick in the fifth round, the football world did not know how to react. This was unprecedented. A quarterback with his talent, his college production, and his national profile falling this far, it did not make sense on paper. The hot takes came fast. Some said teams were scared of the Coach Prime circus. Others claimed there were concerns about his arm strength that never showed up on film. A few whispered about locker room fit and whether Shedeur could handle the NFL without his father on the sideline. Every excuse in the book got thrown at the wall. But here is what got lost in all that noise. While 31 teams were busy finding reasons to pass, Shedeur was busy building something they could not touch. His brand was already locked in. His deals were already signed. His future was already secured in ways that had nothing to do with where his name got called. The Browns got a fifth-round pick with first-round endorsements. Let that sink in for a moment. Cleveland is paying him a fifth-round salary while Nike is paying him like a superstar. The economics of that situation alone should make every general manager in the league uncomfortable. And Shedeur handled the whole thing with the kind of composure that separates professionals from pretenders. No public meltdown. No bitter interviews. No firing shots at the teams that passed. He simply waited his turn, heard his name, put on the Browns cap, and got to work. That kind of mental toughness does not show up on a scouting report. That kind of maturity does not get measured at the combine. But it is exactly what brands look for when they are deciding who to invest millions in. The draft day slide was supposed to be a humiliation. It was supposed to knock Shedeur down a peg and remind him that the NFL does not care about your last name or your social media following. Instead, it became the origin story for something much bigger. Because here is the truth that nobody in the NFL wants to admit. Draft position is just a number. It tells you where teams valued you on one particular day based on their own internal calculations and biases. It does not tell you anything about what happens next. Tom Brady went in the 6th round. Russell Wilson went in the 3rd. Dak Prescott went in the 4th. The greatest quarterback success stories in recent memory all have one thing in common. They proved that the draft is not destiny. Shedeur Sanders is betting his entire career on proving the same thing. And based on what happened before he even stepped foot in an NFL facility, he might have already won that bet. The Browns drafted a quarterback. Nike drafted a movement. What happens next is going to determine which investment pays off bigger. Most rookies sign endorsement deals after they get drafted. They wait to see where they land, negotiate based on their draft position, and hope a brand takes a chance on them. That is how the system works. That is how it has always worked. Shedeur Sanders did not follow that playbook. Before the draft even happened, before anyone knew he would fall to the 5th round, Shedeur locked in deals with Nike and Gatorade. These are not small regional sponsors looking for a local spokesperson. These are two of the biggest sports brands on the planet, and they committed to Shedeur when everyone still assumed he would be a top 20 pick. Think about the confidence that takes from both sides. Shedeur was betting on himself when he could have waited to see his draft stock finalize, and Nike was betting on Shedeur when they could have waited to see where teams valued him. Both sides looked at the situation and said the draft does not matter. The talent matters. The brand matters. The potential matters. That is an incredibly rare thing in professional sports. Endorsement deals are usually reactive. A player gets drafted high, performs well in their first season, and then brands come calling. The traditional path requires proving yourself first and getting paid second. Shedeur flipped that entire model upside down. He got paid first, and now he gets to prove himself with that financial security already in his pocket. He walks into Cleveland owing nothing to anyone except himself. The pressure that usually crushes rookies, the desperation to perform before the money runs out, does not apply here. And when Shedeur slid to the 5th round, Nike did not flinch. They did not renegotiate. They did not ask for revised terms based on his new draft position. They stayed committed because their investment was never about where he got picked. It was about who he is. That loyalty goes both ways. Shedeur now has a brand partner that believed in him when others did not. That creates a bond that goes beyond the typical athlete-sponsor relationship. Nike was in the foxhole with him on draft night. They felt the slide together, and now they are going to rise together. Gatorade made the same calculation. When you look at their roster of athletes, you see generational talents. LeBron James, Caitlin Clark, names that transcend their sports and become cultural icons. Gatorade does not sign 5th-round picks. They sign future Hall of Famers. So what did they see in Shedeur that made them break their own rules? They saw the social media numbers. They saw the engagement metrics. They saw a young man with millions of followers who hang on his every word. They saw the Coach Prime connection and understood that this family knows how to build a brand better than almost anyone in sports history. But more than the numbers, they saw the intangibles. The way Shedeur carries himself. The way he handles pressure. The way he turns every moment into an opportunity. You cannot teach that. You cannot coach it. You either have it or you do not. Shedeur has it in abundance. The pre-draft deals also send a message to the entire league. This player is different. This player does not need you to validate him. This player is going to be successful whether you believe in him or not. Teams passed on him? Fine. The brands that matter most already locked him in. That kind of positioning is psychological warfare. Every team that passed on Shedeur now has to watch him walk into their stadium wearing Nike cleats they cannot buy, drinking Gatorade with his face on the bottle, carrying himself like the superstar they decided he was not good enough to be. And when he performs, when he starts winning games, those pre-draft deals are going to look like the smartest investments in sports marketing history. The gamble has already been placed. The chips are on the table. All that is left is to play the cards. But here is what makes this even more fascinating. This is not just another athlete sponsorship. Nike went deep on Shedeur Sanders in ways that even they rarely do for rookies. We are talking about player-exclusive colorways. We are talking about custom branding. We are talking about a marketing campaign that treats a 5th-round pick like a franchise cornerstone. Let us start with the shoes themselves. The Nike Air DT Max 96 in the legendary colorway is a direct callback to Coach Prime's signature line from his playing days. But Shedeur is not just borrowing his father's legacy. He is building on it. The sneakers feature multiple shades of purple with metallic accents that catch the light in a way that demands attention. On the heel, upside down, sits the word legendary. When you see it right side up, you understand the brand message. When you see it upside down while Shedeur is on the field, you know exactly who is wearing them. That kind of subtle design choice is pure Nike genius. It creates conversation. It makes people look twice. It turns a simple sneaker into a statement piece that tells a story every time someone laces them up. There are also player-exclusive versions in Cleveland Browns colorways that will never hit retail shelves. These are designed specifically for Shedeur to wear during practices and warm-ups. Regular fans cannot buy them. They can only watch and want. That scarcity creates demand. That exclusivity creates desire. Nike understands that sometimes the most powerful marketing is showing people something they cannot have. But the real revelation came when Coach Prime posted those images on Instagram. Most people scrolled past without a second thought. But if you looked closely at those unreleased sneakers, you saw something the internet should have gone crazy about immediately. The legendary branding was not just about paying homage to Dayan. It was about establishing Shedeur as the next chapter of a dynasty. Nike is building a father-son sneaker empire that has no parallel in sports history. Dayan changed the shoe game for football players in the 90s. Now his son is positioned to do the same thing for a new generation. There is also a black colorway scheduled for April release. These feature Shedeur's personal logo, not his father's. Ice blue bottoms that look absolutely cold-blooded. Custom details that separate this shoe from anything else in Coach Prime's line. This is not Shedeur riding his dad's coattails. This is Shedeur launching his own signature line while still connected to the family legacy. Nike is threading that needle perfectly. They are giving fans the nostalgia they crave while delivering something fresh for the new generation. And here is something that flew under the radar. There are strong suggestions that Shedeur might switch back to number 2, the jersey number he wore at Colorado that became synonymous with his brand. If that happens, all those number 12 Browns jerseys suddenly become vintage collector items. And Nike is probably already preparing the second wave of merchandise for the number change. They are thinking 3 moves ahead. That is what separates good marketing from great marketing. Nike is not reacting to the Shedeur Sanders story. They are helping write it. During practices and pre-game warm-ups, Shedeur has been spotted wearing custom Nike DT96 cleats that incorporate the legendary messaging. He is a walking billboard for the brand every time cameras catch him on the field. And in the social media age, that exposure is worth more than traditional advertising could ever buy. The Sports Illustrated article broke it down perfectly. Nike has heavily invested in Shedeur. They are pushing him on social media like he is the face of the franchise. They have created player-only kicks. They have leaned into his famous catchphrases. This is a full marketing campaign centered on a 5th-round quarterback. That last part is what makes NFL front offices nervous. If Nike can turn a 5th-round pick into a sneaker-selling sensation, what does that say about the millions of dollars teams spend on scouting? What does that say about the entire draft evaluation process that is supposed to identify value? It says the system might be broken. It says draft position might be the worst way to measure a player's actual worth. It says that companies betting real money on athletes see things that football executives miss. Nike is not in the business of losing money on bad bets. Their track record speaks for itself. And if they are going all in on Shedeur Sanders with signature shoes, player exclusives, and a global marketing push, you should probably pay attention. To understand why the Shedeur Nike deal matters so much, you need to understand what Coach Prime did for football footwear. Because Shedeur Sanders did not just wear sneakers during his playing days. He transformed what it meant for a football player to have a shoe deal. In the 90s, basketball was king when it came to sneaker culture. Michael Jordan had built an empire. Nike was printing money with every Air Jordan release. Kids were lining up around the block to buy shoes that basketball players wore. Football was an afterthought. Then Shedeur Sanders entered the conversation. Prime Time was not just a football player. He was an event. He was entertainment. He was everything that modern athletes try to be, but decades before social media made personal branding easy. When Nike gave him a signature line, they were not just signing an athlete. They were signing a cultural moment. The Nike Air DT Max became iconic because Dayan made it iconic. He wore those shoes with the same confidence he brought to every kickoff return and every press conference. He turned football footwear into a fashion statement. He proved that NFL players could move sneakers just like their basketball counterparts. But here is the thing that people forget. Since Dayan's era, almost no football player has replicated that success. You can count the NFL players with legitimate signature shoe impact on one hand. Mike Vick had his moment with Nike before everything fell apart. A few guys here and there got endorsement deals, but nobody matched what Prime Time accomplished. Football and sneaker culture just never connected the same way basketball did. The cleats stay on the field. The signature shoes rarely translate to streetwear. The crossover appeal is limited by the nature of the sport. So when Nike looks at Shedeur Sanders, they are not just seeing a young quarterback. They are seeing the first real opportunity in decades to recapture that football sneaker magic. They are seeing the son of the only guy who ever made it work, with the same charisma, the same confidence, and the same ability to make people pay attention. Shedeur grew up watching his father build a brand. He learned those lessons in real time. He understands that being great on the field is only half the equation. The other half is making people care about you off the field, making them want to wear what you wear, making them want to be who you are. That education is priceless. You cannot teach it in a boardroom or explain it in a marketing meeting. You either grew up in the Sanders household and absorbed it through osmosis, or you are trying to figure it out from scratch. Nike knows they have someone who does not need brand building tutorials. Shedeur already speaks the language fluently. The father-son dynamic adds another layer that no other athlete can offer. Coach Prime is still active, still visible, still dominating headlines with everything he does at Colorado. His signature line still sells out. His name still carries weight in sneaker circles. Now imagine both of them pushing product simultaneously. Imagine father and son drops happening in the same year. Imagine the marketing campaigns that play on their relationship, their legacy, their shared journey from college football to the professional ranks. No other sports family can offer that synergy right now. The Sanders brand is unique, and Nike is smart enough to maximize it. There is also something poetic about the timing. Coach Prime reinvented himself as a college football coach and became arguably more famous than he was as a player. He took Colorado from irrelevance to national prominence through sheer force of personality. He proved that his star power had no expiration date. Shedeur is entering the NFL at the peak of his father's second act. The attention on the Sanders family has never been higher. The curiosity about whether the son can match the father has never been more intense. Nike is riding that wave perfectly. And if Shedeur succeeds, if he proves that the apple did not fall far from the tree, the Sanders sneaker dynasty becomes a multi-generational empire that Nike can mine for decades. That is the real vision here. This is not about one shoe deal or one marketing cycle. This is about establishing a football sneaker legacy that spans from the 90s to the 20s and beyond. This is about proving that the Sanders name belongs in the same conversation as Jordan when it comes to athlete branding. Bold? Absolutely. Impossible. Look at the family track record and tell me they cannot pull it off. Nike is the headliner, but the Gatorade partnership might be equally significant when you understand what it represents. Because Gatorade does not sign just anybody. Their athlete roster reads like a Hall of Fame induction ceremony. LeBron James has been with Gatorade for years. The greatest basketball player of his generation, and possibly ever, chose Gatorade as his hydration partner. That is the level we are talking about. Caitlin Clark signed with Gatorade as she was breaking every record in women's college basketball and becoming a genuine crossover star. They saw her potential before the WNBA even started, and they locked her in. Serena Williams, Usain Bolt, Peyton Manning, Derek Jeter. The list of Gatorade athletes is a who's who of transcendent sports figures. These are not just great players. These are icons who changed their sports forever. And now Shedeur Sanders is in that group. A fifth-round quarterback with 0 NFL starts to his name, is standing alongside some of the greatest athletes who ever lived in the Gatorade portfolio. That tells you everything you need to know about how brands are valuing him. The financials of the Gatorade deal have not been publicly disclosed, but based on their typical partnership structures, we're talking about significant money plus massive exposure. Shedeur's face is going to be on bottles. His image is going to be in commercials. His name is going to be associated with athletic performance at the highest level. For a rookie who has not taken a single snap in a regular season game, that is extraordinary. But Gatorade made the same calculation Nike made. They looked at the social media metrics. They looked at the engagement data. They looked at the cultural footprint Shedeur already commands. And they decided that draft position is irrelevant when someone has this much influence. Think about what Shedeur brings to the table from a marketing perspective. Millions of followers across platforms, a famous father who is constantly in the news, a compelling underdog story after the draft slide. Controversy and conversation following him everywhere he goes. That is marketing gold. Every time Shedeur does something noteworthy, Gatorade gets free advertising. Every time his name trends on social media, their brand is attached to it. Every time Coach Prime posts about his son, Gatorade benefits from the association. The return on investment calculations probably look incredible on paper. And here is what makes the Nike plus Gatorade combination so powerful. These are complementary partnerships that reinforce each other. Nike handles the footwear and apparel side. Gatorade handles the performance and lifestyle side. Together, they create a complete athlete brand that covers every angle. Shedeur can walk into a stadium wearing Nike. He can drink Gatorade on the sideline. He can post about both brands to his massive audience. The synergy between the partnerships multiplies the impact of each individual deal. That kind of coordinated brand building usually takes years to develop. Veteran players spend entire careers trying to assemble that kind of endorsement portfolio. Shedeur has it before his first training camp. The Gatorade partnership also signals something important about how the industry views his longevity. Brands like Gatorade do not sign athletes they think are going to flame out quickly. They invest in people they believe will be around for a long time, representing their products through multiple contract cycles. By signing Shedeur, Gatorade is essentially saying they expect him to have a long and successful NFL career. They are betting that the fifth-round thing was a fluke, that he has legitimate starting quarterback talent, and that he is going to be a marketable face for their brand for years to come. That is a powerful vote of confidence from people who do this for a living. Gatorade's athlete evaluation team has probably looked at more prospects than most NFL scouting departments. They know what star power looks like. They know what translates from college to the pros. And they chose Shedeur. When you combine the Nike deal with the Gatorade partnership, you start to see the full picture. This is not one brand taking a flyer on a risky prospect. This is multiple billion-dollar companies independently deciding that Shedeur Sanders is worth significant investment. They cannot all be wrong. Either Nike and Gatorade both made massive evaluation errors, or they see something in Shedeur that 31 NFL teams missed. Given their track records, which scenario seems more likely? The endorsement portfolio is already elite. The rookie has not played a down yet. What happens when he actually starts performing on Sundays? Here's the question that should keep every NFL general manager up at night. How did Nike and Gatorade see superstar potential in Shedeur Sanders, while 31 professional football teams saw a fifth-round prospect? These are two of the most successful sports marketing companies in history. They have spent decades identifying athletes who will become transcendent stars. Their entire business model depends on making correct evaluations about who is going to matter 5 years from now. Nike signed Michael Jordan when he was a rookie and most people thought he was just another talented guard. They saw something that went beyond basketball skills. They saw marketability. They saw charisma. They saw a player who was going to change culture, not just win games. They signed LeBron James when he was in high school. Before he played a single NBA game, Nike looked at this teenager from Akron and decided he was worth a $100 million investment. Everyone thought they were crazy at the time. LeBron is now a billionaire, and Nike has made back that investment 100 times over. They identified Kobe Bryant's potential before he became Kobe. They saw Tiger Woods before the major championships. They have built their empire on being early to generational talents. So when Nike looks at Shedeur Sanders and decides to go all in with signature shoes, player exclusives, and a full marketing campaign, that should mean something. That should carry weight. That should make people reconsider their assumptions. The NFL draft process is flawed in ways that people do not like to talk about. Teams fall in love with measurables that do not translate to the field. They overvalue certain physical attributes while ignoring intangibles that actually matter. They let groupthink drive consensus, so one team's doubt spreads across the league like a virus. Shedeur's draft slide was probably a cascade effect. One team passed because of concerns about his father's media presence. The next team passed because the first team passed. By the time he hit the third round, the narrative was already set. Something must be wrong with him if everyone else is passing. That is not talent evaluation. That is herd mentality. Brands like Nike operate differently. They do not care what other companies are doing. They do their own research. They look at metrics that NFL teams do not consider important: social media engagement, cultural relevance, crossover appeal, storytelling potential. By those measurements, Shedeur Sanders is off the charts. He has millions of followers who genuinely care about his journey. He has a built-in narrative as Coach Prime's son that creates automatic interest. He has handled adversity with grace in ways that generate even more fan support. He has the look, the confidence, and the presence that translate to any platform. NFL scouts measure arm strength and 40 times. Nike measures influence and impact. Both evaluations are valid, but only one of them predicts who is going to sell products. And Nike has decided that Shedeur Sanders is going to sell a lot of products regardless of where he was drafted. There's also something to be said about the data that brands have access to. Nike can see exactly how many people engage with Shedeur's content. They can see the demographics of his audience. They can see how his posts perform compared to other athletes. They can see purchasing patterns among his followers. NFL teams are looking at game film and trying to project NFL success. Nike is looking at consumer behavior and projecting commercial success. Both are predictions, but Nike's data is probably more concrete. The brands also understand something that football people sometimes forget. The NFL is entertainment. It is not just about who wins games. It is about who captures attention, generates conversation, and creates moments that people remember. Shedeur Sanders captures attention. He generates conversation. He creates moments. He does it naturally, without trying, because he grew up in a family where that was the expectation. Maybe the 31 teams that passed were evaluating the wrong things. Maybe draft position is just one data point in a much larger picture. Maybe the brands that stake billions on athlete partnerships know something that scouts with clipboards do not. Nike's track record suggests they do. And if Shedeur proves them right on the field, if he becomes a legitimate NFL starter and leads Cleveland to wins, the conversation about his draft slide is going to flip completely. People will stop asking why he fell so far. They will start asking how anyone let him slide at all. Shedeur Sanders did not just land on any NFL team. He landed in Cleveland, which brings its own unique set of circumstances and opportunities. The Browns have been searching for a franchise quarterback for what feels like forever. The list of failed experiments is long and painful for Cleveland fans. Deshaun Watson's tenure has been complicated by injuries and inconsistent performance after that massive guaranteed contract made national headlines for all the wrong reasons. Into this situation walks a fifth-round rookie with superstar endorsements and a famous father who has never been shy about speaking his mind. The dynamics are fascinating before anyone even throws a football. Head coach Kevin Stefanski has built a reputation as an offensive mind who can develop quarterbacks. He helped Kirk Cousins reach new levels in Minnesota before coming to Cleveland. The system he runs is quarterback-friendly when all the pieces are in place. But Stefanski also values players who put their heads down and work. He prefers letting performances speak rather than generating headlines. That approach is going to be tested with Shedeur because headlines follow this family everywhere they go. The fit is either going to be perfect or explosive. There is no middle ground. If Stefanski and Shedeur connect, if they develop the kind of trust that allows a young quarterback to flourish, Cleveland might have finally found their answer. The arm talent is there. The mental makeup seems solid based on how Shedeur handled the draft slide. The supporting cast has pieces that could help a young signal caller succeed. But if there is friction, if the coach prime media circus clashes with Stefanski's preferences, if the spotlight on Shedeur creates tension in the locker room with veterans who have been grinding without that kind of attention, that is where things could get complicated. The Browns also have the question of playing time to sort out. Shedeur was drafted in the 5th round, which means the organization did not view him as an immediate starter when they made the pick. There will be a competition. There will be evaluation periods. There will be decisions about when and if Shedeur gets his opportunity. Every day he spends on the bench is a day his Nike and Gatorade deals are not generating game day content. Every week he watches from the sideline is a week where the investment those brands made looks less impressive. The pressure to play him will come from directions that most 5th-round picks never experience. That could work in Shedeur's favor if he is ready. Coaches and front offices might give him opportunities earlier than they would give a normal 5th-round quarterback simply because of the external attention. The spotlight demands content, and content requires playing time. Or it could backfire if Shedeur is not ready. Getting pushed onto the field before a young quarterback is developed can destroy careers. The NFL is unforgiving, and mistakes made as a rookie can follow players for years. The Cleveland situation is high risk and high reward. The stage is big enough for Shedeur to make a national statement if he succeeds, but the pressure is also big enough to crush him if he struggles. And then there is the jersey number situation. Shedeur wore number 2 at Colorado, and that number became synonymous with his brand. At Cleveland, there are suggestions he might switch back to 2 if the opportunity presents itself. That kind of switch matters more than people realize. Number 2 is the Shedeur Sanders brand. It is what fans associate with his college dominance. It is what Nike has probably planned their future marketing around. Getting back to that number would signal that Shedeur is fully establishing himself as the Cleveland Browns' future. It would also create an interesting merchandise dynamic. Everyone who bought a number 12 Shedeur Sanders jersey suddenly has a vintage collector item. Everyone who waited now has to buy the number 2 version. Nike gets 2 sales cycles instead of 1. The Cleveland Browns are getting more than a 5th-round quarterback. They are getting a fully formed brand with established partnerships and national recognition. How they handle that gift will determine whether Shedeur's NFL story is triumphant or tragic. The pieces are in place for something special. The question is whether everyone involved can put aside egos and expectations to let it happen. What comes next will answer that question definitively. This is about more than Shedeur Sanders and his sneaker deals. This is about a fundamental shift in how professional athletes build their careers and their brands. For decades, the traditional path was clear. Get drafted. Prove yourself on the field. Wait for teams and sponsors to validate your worth. Let the system determine your value. Players were dependent on organizations for everything from playing time to endorsement opportunities. Shedeur represents a new model. Build your brand before you are drafted. Secure your partnerships before you take a snap. Create your value independent of what teams think you are worth. Let the market determine your ceiling instead of the draft board. This scares the NFL establishment for very good reasons. If every talented college player follows Shedeur's blueprint, the power dynamics change completely. Teams lose leverage over rookies who already have financial security. Draft position becomes less important when brands are making independent evaluations. The whole system that keeps players dependent on organizations starts to crumble. Imagine a world where first-round picks negotiate harder because they see fifth-round picks with better endorsement deals. Imagine a world where players skip the draft entirely because they can make more money through their personal brand than through their rookie contract. Imagine a world where teams matter less because individual athletes have become their own media companies. That world is coming. Shedeur is just the early warning signal. The old guard in NFL front offices built their careers in a system that gave them all the power. They evaluated talent. They determined draft position. They controlled playing time. They decided who got opportunities and who got cut. Now a company that makes shoes is telling them their evaluations are wrong. Nike is saying that draft position means nothing when someone has genuine star power. They are saying that the 31 teams that passed on Shedeur made a collective mistake. And if they are right, if Shedeur becomes a legitimate NFL star, the credibility of the entire draft process takes a massive hit. General managers will have to answer for why billion-dollar brands saw something they missed. The implications extend beyond football. Every sport is watching what happens with Shedeur. Every young athlete is studying his playbook. Every brand is reconsidering how they evaluate talent. The nil era in college sports already started this transformation. Players are monetizing their names and images while still in school. They are building followings and securing partnerships before declaring for any draft. They are entering professional leagues with established brands that used to take years to develop. Shedeur is the first major example of what happens when that college brand machine meets the NFL. He is the test case for whether the new model works. He is the experiment that everyone is watching to see if athletes can truly control their own destinies. The stakes are enormous. If Shedeur succeeds, the floodgates open. Every talented college athlete will follow the same path. Every brand will get more aggressive about signing players early. Every team will have to adjust to a reality where their evaluation is just one opinion among many. If Shedeur fails, the traditional powers will use him as a cautionary tale. They will say that brands overreached. They will say that marketing cannot replace on-field production. They will say that the system was right all along and the draft process accurately identified his limitations. Either way, Shedeur Sanders has already changed the conversation. He has already proven that the old rules do not have to apply. He has already shown that a player can walk into the league with more commercial support than most veterans earn in a decade. The game outside the game will never be the same. That is what the NFL owners are really upset about. Not the shoes, not the sports drinks, not the marketing campaigns. They are upset because Shedeur Sanders represents a future where players have more power and teams have less, and there is nothing they can do to stop it. When those legendary sneakers drop in April, remember this moment. Remember when everyone questioned whether a fifth-round pick deserved this kind of treatment. Remember when analysts doubted whether Nike made the right call. Remember when the NFL establishment was angry that the old rules were being broken. And then watch what happens next. Shedeur Sanders is not just selling shoes. He is selling a new way of thinking about athlete value. He is proving that draft position is just one number on one day, not a permanent judgment on your potential. Nike sees a legend in the making. Gatorade sees a generational talent. Cleveland sees their potential future. Millions of fans see the next chapter of the Sanders dynasty. 31 teams saw a fifth-round pick. Only time will tell who was right. But if history is any guide, betting against the Sanders family is usually a mistake. Betting against Nike's athlete evaluation is usually a mistake. Betting against a young man with this much drive, this much support, and this much to prove is usually a mistake. The legendary era is just beginning, and everyone who doubted is about to learn why that word is on the back of those shoes.